Hey, so my name's Andy and I moved to Hanoi with my family. So there's my partner and our two children who were 5 and 18 months when we got here. And the aim of this video is to hopefully give you some hints and tips and things that I wish I'd known and we'd known when we first moved here. So I guess if you move into Hanoi, one of the big questions you're going to have to answer is, where am I going to live? And if you drag up a map of Hanoi, you'll notice that it's dominated by this huge lake in the middle called West Lake. And on the right hand side is the Red River. And then you've got a load of stuff just south of the lake. You find a lot of expats live in this area called Tay Ho. And Tay Ho surrounds the lake, and it's also a lot more of the housing on the eastern side, especially in an area called Quang Ngan that juts out into the lake. We live in an area called Dong Da, which is just south of the lake, and you'll find some green spaces much further out. But if you live there and you work in the city, you might find that your commute is going to be a long and hard one some days, especially when it's really sunny or there's a load of traffic. If you're going to come here, by all means do loads of research before you come here on the different areas, but nothing beats actually seeing it for yourself. So what we did, and what I would say is a great idea, we got an Airbnb in Quang Ngan for a month. And number one, it was great for the kids to transition, because in Quang Ngan especially, there's quite a lot of home comforts, if you will. There's some pizza places, there's some Mexican places, you can kind of find some French bakeries. So we're in a new city, but there's some kind of things that our children found comfortable from back home, and it also gave us a chance to really get to know the city and have a look around and decide where we wanted to end up. The other thing that's really annoying is that you're going to find a lot of landlords don't take properties off the websites when people are living in them. So you might find 20 properties on the website and 16 of them have tenants in. So the easiest thing to do is to actually go into some rental agencies and get taken by a rental agent round all the places that they actually do have for rent. And quite often you'll find that the pictures don't do justice to the actual apartments and houses that you're going to look around. So number two is people and culture. There's no way of getting around this, but Vietnamese as a language is just brutal to learn. My partner is doing a much better job than me, but it's a tonal language, so it's not only important what you say, but how you say it, the inflections that you put on the words. But I will say this, moving from UK to Vietnam was a huge culture shock, but the people here are super friendly, and it was just a really easy transition for us. We didn't feel threatened. There's not that much crime here at all. It feels super safe. In terms of learning Vietnamese, you can really try and learn Vietnamese. English is pretty widely spoken, especially amongst the younger generations, and especially when you go places like the shopping malls or any places that serve kind of Western things like pizzas and burgers and that kind of stuff. But even if you're like me, I'm not particularly gifted in languages, but I at least know enough Vietnamese to kind of fumble my way through a trip to the market. And I can usually get the stuff I need without everybody getting a bit annoyed with each other. Even if the Vietnamese people don't speak English, they're really patient and they're really helpful in terms of helping you get what you need. Vietnamese food is great. I really like it. If you have children, it might take them a while to get used to it, but you can find loads of really cheap Vietnamese food everywhere. Super delicious. If you're missing the comforts from back home, there's also tons of places that you can find for pizzas, Mexican, burgers, more obscure places like Eastern European food, just loads of stuff everywhere. So if you wanted to go out somewhere and find some food from back home, you can do that, especially if your kids are missing that kind of thing. There's loads of expat families here too. So in terms of making friends and finding children for your children to hang out with, you're going to find loads of people, and especially with expats, if you've not experienced it before, you know, just having one coffee with somebody suddenly leads to you exchanging phone numbers and then arranging to go out the next day with them somewhere. The only thing I would say that's worth thinking about, especially if you bring in children here, is that Vietnam doesn't really have any taboos on touching children, especially like unannounced. So you might go down the street and you might find somebody wants to stroke your child's hair, which we found a little bit weird. The children found a little bit weird. Apparently it's part of the culture here in Vietnam. So we had to look out for that. We kind of had to work out a way to kind of politely say no, but that is something to think about. So third on the list is weather and pollution. Now the weather is something that kind of took us by a little bit by surprise here. We were kind of expecting to move to a hot Southeast Asian country, and in the summer it is hot, and I mean really hot here. I mean regularly, kind of in the high 30s and kind of tipping into 40, 41 degree territory. So you might find you might not want to go out during the day, but people go out in the morning, people go out in the late afternoon. The weird thing is that where Hanoi is and the climate, you know, if you're more scientifically inclined than me, you might want to look it up. But it does have an actual winter, and I mean like kind of jumper and jacket weather, feeling really cold, put the heating on. Some people love it, some people wish it was just hot all year round. But it's something to think about, and it gives you a little bit of a respite from the heat, especially in those transitional months just before winter and just after winter, when it's just absolutely delightful. Mid-20s, you know, you're not worried about going out and getting sunburn or just getting like absolutely drained because of all the sweat. So the weather's quite nice here. It rains obviously more in the summer, like so many places in this part of the world. But even then, you know, you'll find that most of the time it's going to be dry as well. It is humid quite a lot, and especially there's a period after winter where it gets so humid that if you put your washing out, it's going to be drying for days. So loads of people have dehumidifiers here, and that's something to think about. The other big one is to think about the pollution, and that's really crept up over the last 10 years. Didn't used to be a problem, but you can really tell the pollution. Here's a nice little video of me on top of a building in Quang Gan, and I won't play the audio because you can't hear it because there's so much wind, but you can see in the background that there's loads of smog there, and you'll find that the AQI, if you've got the app on your phones or anything like that, the air quality index can creep up to 200 and above regularly, especially over winter. And that kind of territory is when the app will tell you not to go outdoors really, not to do strenuous activity, and you absolutely need to buy some air purifiers for your home. I'm asthmatic and I found it affecting me at times. I know other people have too. So it's a big factor, and you've got to think about whether you're comfortable with that when you move here. But if you move slightly out of the city, you're going to see a little bit less pollution. But that's a question for you. Now, lastly is things that you might want to bring from back home. Now, obviously, I don't know where all of you guys are going to be coming from, and I'm not going to list all of the things that you need to bring. But we found ourselves coming from a Western country. There were some things that I kind of wish we brought more of. But on the positive side of things, before we get onto that, there are two huge apps that you can get here. You can get one called Lazada, and you can get one called Shopee. And basically they're the Southeast Asian equivalent of Amazon, and you can usually find absolutely tons of things that you need, and you're going to get delivered to your door. You can also find that you can find most stuff in Hanoi. If there's something that you're craving from back home, you can find it somewhere. Someone will be making it or have imported it. Some stuff's really expensive, but you just have to cross your fingers and see what it is. Things that I wished I'd thought about a little bit more before we came here. Number one are clothes. I'm 6'2", very much a tall Westerner. My partner is tall. My children are kind of tall for their ages, and I found that there's no clothes I can find here that fit me. I can buy the odd t-shirt or vest or pair of shorts, but in terms of jeans or long sleeve shirts or jackets, forget it. You're not going to find anything that's going to fit you really, unless you traipse around the entire city and get lucky. So I'd bring anything long sleeve with you because you're probably not going to be able to buy stuff here. Sun cream is pretty hard to come by. You might find the sun cream in the shops here, but Asians love to look a little bit paler than they do, in the kind of opposite way that Westerners often like to look more tan than they are. So you might find Factor 50 with whitening cream in the supermarkets, and if you're like me, who's already quite pasty, you're going to be thinking, why do I want to look even whiter than I am? So finding good quality sun cream is something that you might want to bring a lot of. The other thing is you're going to get a lot of mosquitoes here, and you might end up with a lot of mosquito bites. And you can find fairly decent cream here, but nothing beats the stuff that we bought from back home. So next time I visit back home, I'm going to bring an absolute ton of mosquito cream. Medication is another thing that you really need to think about a little bit before you come here. I have asthma, and I find it really hard to find the specific medication because they just don't sell it in Southeast Asia. Eventually what I had to do was make an appointment with a doctor, show them the medication that I was on, and they kind of recommended me stuff I could get from a pharmacy that would work instead. And it was successful, but it was a bit of a faff going to the hospital, making an appointment, sitting down, talking it all through. So if you are going to bring some medication that you need, I would advise on stocking up with much as you could bring before you come here, because you might find it easy, but you might find it more difficult when you're actually here. But generally you're going to find a lot of things from back home you can source here. And I wouldn't be too stressed, you know, you're not moving to the middle of nowhere. You can find a lot of things here if you need them. So that's about it really for moving here. That's all the tips and rough overview. I'm making a lot more little bespoke videos, so please like and subscribe if you would like to follow this channel. But yeah, feel free to like and subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Thanks.